1 p.m. Hi everyone, my name is Alberto Wirtz. I'm part of the innovation team in Aracari, and today we're going to have a truly global conversation, not only because you are all over the world, literally, but because I'm based here in Lima, Peru, where Aracari offices are located. Marisol is based in London, where she currently is, and our guest today, Mr. Jonathan Stack, who have been nominated twice for the Academy Award as a filmmaker. He usually is in New York, but right now he is in Cusco, and he's gonna tell us why he's in Cusco right now. Now, as you know, the luxury business is all about connections, and this series of conversations, we want you to connect with the interesting people we have met along the way. Aracari has been delivering luxury travels to Peru, Bolivia, and the Galapagos for the last 23 years. And as you may imagine, we have met pretty interesting people along the way. And we want you to know their stories and to get inspired as we are also inspired. The dynamic of this conversation series is very simple. I'm going to be introducing the conversation. Then Marisol is going to be introducing our guests, and they're going to have more or less like a half-an-hour talk that will get us all inspired. And towards the end of that presentation, we are going to share some pictures that illustrate this conversation. And right at the end, we're going to have time for questions. So if you happen to have any questions for Marisol or for our guest today, just type them down on the chat box, and I'm going to do my best to gather them all, and at the end of the conversation, deliver them to our guests. And with nothing else to say from my end, I will leave you with Marisol and Jonathan that is setting up his video.
Okay. Anyway, so so Eddie, it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you and share this wonderful story that we have today for you. And here he is. He appeared right on time. Jonathan Stack, as Alberto said, an acclaimed filmmaker and based in the States, in New York, but he just happens to be now in Cusco. He arrived there on an assignment where I was involved in Aracari and a lot of our guests and friends, a fundraiser to set up the media campaign to try to stop the projected airport in Chinchero. For those who are not necessarily aware of what it is, this is a beautiful area outside of Cusco, near Machu Picchu as well, where there's a plan to build an airport with the purpose of attracting more visitors to the area and also to create jobs. But this has negative ramifications that we're very worried about. And with a group of people, we organized that Jonathan would come over and participate as filmmaker to create a media campaign. But then when he arrived, the hammer struck, and it was lockdown because of COVID. And Jonathan could have left back home to New York, but he decided to stay. And this is the story we're going to share, and how the insights he's getting in Cusco, the people he's meeting, the connections he's making, and how he sees the future of Cusco, of tourism, of people's perception. So welcome, Jonathan.
Morning or good afternoon. I think we're in all times of day. So hi everybody. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Jonathan, tell us a little bit about you and how you like what your aim with your filmmaking is, and why the involvement with the project. I heard that I've read that you say that a voice to the voiceless is one of your aims, and so
yeah. Well, I just want to first off by saying how it's so great to see so many people because it's so rare now. We live in these worlds, these small, in our homes. Many of us haven't seen many others than ourselves, our family. We haven't gotten out very much. Now things are starting to open up, but it's really nice to see so many people from so many places. It's kind of a reminder of like what I love about life is traveling and meeting people and really expanding my horizons. I had left New York on March 5th to go to Ecuador. That was the original plan. I'd be there for a week. I was working with the Ministry of Health. I actually remember a meeting they had about coronavirus, but it seemed like a distant idea then. It seemed like didn't make any sense. I was there on a family planning project that I work all over the world called World Vasectomy Day, which is a whole other topic I would be happy to discuss on another day. But I had, and I was going to Colombia on March 24th, and I had this 10 days or 12 days, and I have a friend in Lima, and she invited me to come to support her and her group of friends and colleagues who were trying to stop this airport. And I've been doing a lot of work, not just making movies, but trying to create political movements. You know, how do we create community of activists to try to make an impact on the planet? And that's something I've been doing a lot all over the world. So I thought I have 10 days. I flew from Ecuador on March 12th. I arrived on the 13th in the morning, Friday the 13th. That might have been auspicious. I should have thought of it then. And I was and I had to choose. I was told right away that the project was going to be canceled because of coronavirus. And I was in Lima, and I was like, do I go up to Cusco? And I called up the woman who was organizing things here named Patricia Legoas, and she said everything is fine. The people are really ready to keep with the project. And I really had thought about Marisol. It was really about how hard you had worked to try to get people to support the project. And I was just like, I really thought to myself that day, I was like, you know, if it was important enough before coronavirus, it's going to be important during and after. So I should continue on my way up to Cusco. So I flew up on the 14th, Saturday. On Sunday, they announced the emergency, and they gave people 48 hours to leave the country. And I made a decision then. I was like, you know, it's kind of like hedging my bets. And I thought, let me stay it out for the week. Maybe I'll stay for 2 weeks. And I thought it would be fine, you know, and now it's been 7.5 weeks, going on 8 weeks. And, you know, that's what we're here to talk about, what I've done in the last 8 weeks.
Yeah. And so and you decided to stay on because of that, because you felt, okay, there's going to be interesting stuff, because you have this instinct to want to explore, right? And bring new, it sounded like it when we spoke, right?
I mean, I was just like, first of all, let's just set it straight. Cusco is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. So I'm not a fool either. It was like, I had a week to spend in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. It's going to really, you're going to have to push me real hard to keep me from continuing on. So I was super excited to come up to Cusco just for that alone. And yeah, I mean, I really believed, I just felt strongly, the more I learned about what was happening about the airport, that it was just such a wrong idea. It was just a mistake. And it was just something that needed to be corrected. And I just love kind of fighting with the underdog. And at that point, you got to keep in mind, the airport, they were already talking about the airport starting to be, they were going to choose the construction company in April, and then by June, they were going to start in full force. So it was something that there was a lot of momentum, and it had been momentum that had been building over 40 years. So it'd been a long time now in coming, and it was sort of the last gasp effort to try to stop it. And I just was like, okay, you know, this is the right place to be in the right time in history. And everything that's happened, I mean, it's just extraordinary, actually, if you think about it, because, you know, at that point, it was like, will there be an airport? And the first interview I did was one of the heads of tourism here in Cusco, and Esther Ventura actually introduced me to a guy named Carlos Milla, and at that first meeting, he was still like in that sort of enthusiasm of the airport, and that there are 3.5 million tourists, but with this airport, we could get up to 10 million a year. You know, it was like a dream of growth and expansion that had no limits. It was sort of like everything was possible. So it's ironic that not only now is the discussion of the airport somewhat moot, it's like the tourism, travel is, you know, I did my job a little too well. I meant to stop the airport, not to stop travel on the whole planet. But here we are, you know, it's like, and you know, we're going to talk about a lot of these things, but, you know, like as soon as I got into here and I started to meet people and started to really get a sense of what was at stake, and going to Chinchero, where the airport was going to be built, and the magnificence of the place, and the people who really cared the most about stopping it, who were the people who live there. It was
sorry to interrupt. So thanks to your crew in Cusco, you managed to get passes, because at the beginning the lockdown was quite strict. So you guys were amongst the few who could move around, right?
Yeah, I mean,
going about your business.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say, but I think I've had the best pandemic of anybody on the planet. I had a car, I had a pass, I have film equipment which I had brought. I still had a couple of young people who wanted to work with us, so I was really from the day one, I've been out there. I don't think I've spent a single day in lockdown. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I've been out and about filming and interviewing and shooting empty streets, and we're going out at night with police. I've really filmed a lot of things.
And you've met very interesting people. So you went off to Chinchero and you started making connections. Some people you could see, some people I suppose were reluctant, right, because of the situation.
Yeah, there have been people who are, not naturally cautious about leaving their homes or having any contact with anybody, and that's fair, and that makes sense for a lot of people. But there are some people out there who really saw this as like, this was the window. There was a moment now in history where things were stopping, and there was a chance to express and to maybe stop an airport. But it wasn't just the airport anymore. It was really people who were really concerned about the future of their community, the future of the country, the future of the planet. And this is very strong feelings here. And it's very much part of the culture here. People talking about Pachamama, the Mother Earth, like this is a deep-seated sense of something wrong on the planet that is being represented through coronavirus.
Interesting. And so you think that some of these profound beliefs are coming up again, and they're a matter of reflection for people saying, okay, so we've given up our land for this dream of progress, and now look, now we're back to the basics. Now we need food, right? We need potatoes.
You've seen a lot of people have seen pictures of people leaving, the big cities like Lima, even Cusco, Arequipa. They're literally walking back to their communities in large numbers, because there's this awareness, awakening of the value of land. Right now, if you're in Cusco, a city where it's 85% tourism driven, and now all of a sudden you're looking to the prospects of no work, people are really thinking about getting back to their land and planting. So we spent a lot of time in the rural, in Chinchero, in these communities, up in these chacras, and now they're going higher and higher up in the mountains. And part of that is because they sold their land. I mean, parts of the community sold that precious land right in front of right where the airport's going to be built. It's almost 500 hectares right now of land that is beautiful agricultural land that's just been there for 8 years. It hasn't been harvested, nothing's been grown there. So there's a time right now that we're right now in this moment where like people are really looking for ways of surviving. And you think of Chinchero, which is like many parts of, I'm sure, around Cusco. It's a city, it's a tiny town that has grown very rapidly, not because just the airport, because of tourism in the last 5-10 years. It's radically changed already. And now it's really facing a very difficult reality. The population's larger, less land to harvest, and more people to feed. The government, the 380 soles that people are talking about, haven't arrived in these places. So because they just haven't arrived. And now there's all these family members coming back from Lima and other cities hungry, and they don't have land anymore. So there's a lot of pressure being built. And there's been some talk about, that it was actually the Chincheros themselves pushing for the airport. Well, now there's that numbers are switching in the other direction. For at least right now, people are even talking about, even the mayor of the city. I think I mentioned to you, Marisol, the mayor of the city, I was driving around with him, and he said, if they don't build this airport soon, people are going to invade the land. So you see there's pressure, and I just, I just have to mention, you're talking about characters. This woman, Rocio, she's such a fantastic character for a film, from my perspective, but just as a leader. She's just courageous woman who really loves her land and is fighting so hard to keep it going. And I, that's why I stay on. You were talking about giving voice to the voiceless. It's like when you meet people who are just like against all odds, I don't, have a profound intelligence and just a passion. She like at a certain moment, she picks up the soil and she notices that the color of the soil and the color of the skin are the same, and she just has this beautiful way of saying, this land is, I am made of this land, and my children will be made, and my parents before them, and she goes back in time. And at a certain point, she looks up in front of her land, which we'll look at a picture later. There's a cut in the land, right where her land ends, the airport begins. There's this cut. It's a very ugly cut. And she looks at it, and I said, what does it make you feel when you see that land? And she said, I feel like those women who were forced sterilization in the 1990s. It's like the land is like my body, and they just cut right into it, and they've taken away its capacity to give life. And that's how I feel. I feel like it's been forced sterilization. And she's just amazing. Some people who just have a capacity to communicate their pain and suffering, and she's just amazing. And she's a fighter to bring about change.
because my perception was that a lot of the villagers in Chinchero at the time when, you know, the airport was really popular were really in favor of it. So she was always against it. She was always a campaigner and fighting against the airport project. And now
Yeah, I mean,
many people
yeah, she's just one of those people, and you know, and she's not alone. I mean, certainly, there's always leaders, people who have a stronger voice, but she's not alone. There are other in their community who feel, and everybody we spoke to, of course, now everybody's like, let's go plant the land. Some people have benefited. We filmed up in these communities that, you know, they sold their land, they took their money, and they built this area, and they call it Little Juliaca.
Oh,
it's like New Juliaca. It's like, it looks really, it's just horrible. And it's right at the end of where the airport would be. And it's all those half cement constructions. And they're not even people living in them because they ran out of money. And now they don't have land and they don't have home. The situation is bad, but people say that it, you know, we'll look later, people say, oh, you know, it lost its beauty. No, Chinchero is magnificent. Is it as magnificent as it was 50 years ago? No, but nothing is. I'm not either as good looking. So things fall apart in life. But it's still incredible. I mean, we went there with another person that I've talked to you about, Father Jorge Benito.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go to you to tell your acquaintance with him.
He's just this amazing Jesuit priest who also turned out to have been, he's an engineer, he's a judo master, he's 78 years old, he's like amazing spirit with incredible energy. And in 2008 and 2009, he led a research project with the university here in Cusco to find an alternative to Chinchero. And that was up in a place called Ocoruro, which is higher up than even Chinchero is, which is 3,750 meters. This is almost 4,000, this is 4,000 meters. But it doesn't interfere with anybody's livelihood or any community. In fact, the community in Ocoruro, which is where his idea was, donated the land already. They've already donated those 450 hectares, which are needed for the airport. And it's beautiful, and it would not interfere with anybody's pasaje. It's just a better place all around. So he's just an amazing guy. It turns out also that he was the priest there. He was a young priest in his late 20s, early 30s. He was a priest in Chinchero in 1972 and 1973. So his roots there. And he just, you know, when he walks around as a priest and he starts crying for what he fears is going to be lost. You know, you really know how deeply passionate people are here to preserve something more than just the land or you know, it's really about a kind of a way of being and culture, which now just feels so like urgent. And that's what I love about being here, because there's so many people in Cusco for whom the ancient knowledge or cosmology, Andean cosmology, is not just like a theoretical idea or a place to go visit. It's really very part of of everyday life, and that I think is what makes it so special.
Can you mentioned that like what you're telling me now is the profound traditional practices. Perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on that are from the Andes that could offer solutions to Cusco and who knows the world. You know, much like.
Well, let me just tell you, I have to preface by saying I'm not an expert. I'm sure there are a lot of people in this group who could elaborate way better than I can. So everything I'm sharing with you is like, it's like virgin knowledge. It's just things I am learning as they unfold. All I can say is that there's a sort of an intensity with which people are wanting to share their knowledge right now. But one of the things that, you know, I learned about, I'm sure everybody knows, Aini, which is this notion of like collective shared effort and work, is something that they're doing. You see it now more than ever. Like, you see how people are working together because there's a sense of urgency of planting food right now and harvesting, because there's a lot more mouths to feed and time is sharp. So you see how people are working together. And then of course this idea of Ayllu, which is this idea of like community and the collective whole, which includes nature and Apus and the spirits and Mother Earth and the Son, the Father, Son. All of these characters and all of these spirits are very real in the lives here. And you're seeing it as something very authentic to the experience right now. But I think also for me, what's exciting is because, you know, yesterday, it was something interesting. Yesterday, they were talking about the priest, because we've been filming with the priest. He does the daily mass, and he said, you know, the same. He says in his mass, which is called the Misa para la Tierra, Mass for the Earth. He said, you know, the Chinese symbol for chaos and opportunity is the same, and now we live in a time of great opportunity. And that's really part of what's inspiring me is like, things have stopped on the planet. There's been a wake-up call. If you want to wake up and get busy doing do new things, this is an amazing time right now. You want to go back to what was before, I'm not sure there'll be the before. So we have time. This is exciting opportunities right now for reimagining how to be in the world. And I think that things that are being taught and that have been known here for centuries are extremely valuable for what's happening on the world. I think it's also why Cusco has always been a destination point for people. It's not just going to see Machu Picchu, it's connecting to that kind of knowledge, which now is so it resonates so powerfully with our life.
And you've come up with a number of very cool ideas and interesting ideas with your imagination about production ideas of how to use the resources to then revitalize the city and reimagine it. Because now, you know, tourists are not going to pour down now, and not everybody's going to be like selling stuff and selling food and da-da-da. They're going to be having to create new things for themselves and for the people that visit. No, you had a bunch of ideas.
Yeah, no, I tell you, I mean, okay, so you know, I'm, as a documentary filmmaker, I like to be everywhere and be part of everything that's happening. So not every day, but number of times we've gone out with the police. So every night at 6 o'clock, the police go out on this huge, it's like a, you know, like a caravan of cars that go out and they honk the horns and they play music loud and people clap and applaud them. And it's beautiful. It's actually a beautiful thing to see how beautifully received they are. And there's a sense of community, and you talk to the police chief and it's feeling this sense of we're alive, and we're at 6 o'clock, the city closes down, but there's still a lot of human beings here. And I just said, why don't we do the same thing, but with poetry reading and dance and music? There's so much talent in this city that why aren't we just like, this is the time right now. Everybody's in their homes and they're sitting there and there's just so much news you can watch. I mean, it's depressing to watch and it's boring, frankly, anyhow, but you know, they show the same 5 images over and over and over. And then there are these experts who talk. It's like, why not connect with all this incredible talent? That poetic, artistic, creative talent is here in Cusco in an extraordinary number. And it's all over the world, but there's no doubt that this city both attracts and inspires that sort of creative genius. And why not create a whole media platform that gives that chance to share it in their homes and communities? The same thing we're talking about, you know, talking to people and say, why not? Every kid is at their home. Now, you know, if you go to a private school, you're probably getting a decent education now, not great, but something. But if you're living in the country or you live in a poor family, what they're offering online is just, you know, you're going to lose a year. These kids are in their homes. So I've just been saying, like, why don't we create programs for Cusqueños? You know, why aren't Cusqueños able to get, you know, like, let's get them involved. Let's start telling stories. So even meeting with some of your guides and talking to them and saying, okay, let's do live stream classes. Let's follow one of your guides every week or every day for an hour and a half on a walk through nature as they teach young people. And all this is possible with technology. Just this simple, basic technology I bring, and we can do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about the films that you have? I mean, the project, because you've got 2 scripts. You already created 2 scripts and you're going to pitching them already.
Yeah, we're already well. The first project is the one that, you know, that brought me here and that you brought me here for, and it has to do with Chinchero and the airport and following these main characters and really following Rocio, who I mentioned already, and we'll see pictures of her later and her story. And we'll talk about that a little bit more because going on, but I also met an organization called Mosquera, which is it's a women's collective of weavers. And she's been working very hard to get their works shared around the world. And now, you know, she wants to go out and just, you know, go out with her and follow the path of a thread and how a thread becomes a garment or in this case, she's going to create a shawl. And we're going to do a kind of a collective project. So I've created 2 scripts. I submitted them to the Canadian Broadcasting Commission. I think tomorrow we're supposed to hear. That's going to make a huge difference in what we can do here. But those are the 2 films that we want to do. And they're, you know, I'll tell you more about the Chinchero one, but both of them I think have the possibility for something that could be really special and unique. And just generally speaking, like putting out the word, like I connected with there's they started a group here of audiovisual, you know, technicians, editors, filmmakers, everybody doing, you know, have everything that's here in Cusco. So I'm just saying is like, why don't we all collectively work together? We can work together, a little aini, put it to our own practice, and let's start creating content for the communities here. So
wonderful. Absolutely. If anybody has questions, you can put them up on the chat, and then Jonathan will answer them. Or if you have questions now, you can also ask them now.
We have one question coming from Laura Chaverri, and she's asking, where can we see your films, Jonathan? I already sent her some links, but you can talk about that.
Well, I'll share a link. I mean, I have, you know, over the years, they've been on, the films have been on Netflix. They've been all over the place. You know, I've had them on television. Right now, you know, I don't have anything that's on television right now, but if you, you know, I can share later a link with a film I did. I've done a lot of films in prison in Louisiana, but I made films all over the world, but I've been very well known for the films that I did in this one prison in Louisiana. So I'll send you a link to one of those films we can share with everybody in the group.
Fantastic. And, you know, I think that we should be, you know, towards the end of this, we're reaching the end of the conversation in a way, and we haven't mentioned tourism very much. And of course, we're a tourism company. Cusco's a tourist city. The airport was a tourism project. How do you think, what's going to happen? What are people saying? Because they must be very worried, right? That,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, I think there's a sense of, there's panic, you know, by a lot of people, you know, like there's a sort of a quiet nervousness, you know, right now they're still in the dealing with just getting through the day to day. I think on the other side, there's going to be a lot of anxiety. The conversations that I've had have started with like regional, you know, right here, Peruvian tourism that people get to see. And actually, you know, I really thought about it. It's just like, I can't tell you how many people I speak to, Marisol, who don't have, they've never seen Machu Picchu. They can't afford to go to Machu Picchu. So maybe the first thing they might do is actually open Machu Picchu up to Cusqueños, to young people who are sitting in their homes, and make it possible for them to see some of their own beautiful things. The second level of tourism is going to be Peruvian. And I think from there people are talking about regional tourism from other countries around the area. I don't know anything about how long or what it's going to take for it to reestablish tourism here. But I think there's going to be a window. I mean, my experience of what it's been like for these 8 weeks, I'm not saying anybody's going to spend 8 weeks here, nor is that possible now, but there's going to be a time when it's very intimate. It's not going to be like it was before. I think there's going to be, for people who have more resources and are able to get here, this is going to be an amazing time to come here. And I think what we need to start doing is really sharing with people, just to reminding people that this place has huge value, and not just as a tourist, but just as a human citizen. And I think that there's going to be more and more people who want to be part of, you know, they're worried about the planet. And I think to come here is a very powerful healing experience. And that's a lot of what we could be doing. And that's a lot of what I'm working on with this kind of media idea, is really sharing the powerful wisdom of this place, because there will come a time when people are they're going to need that more than ever. And I think they're going to find it here in Cusco pretty much more and better and more powerful than any other place. So Cusco as a destination is going to be hugely powerful. I don't know that it's going to be 10 million people a year like Carlos Milla was speculating, but there's going to be people coming here because it's going to be like a Mecca. And I think
I need that energy, right?
We need to, that's the story I want to tell, and I am telling. And I think it's been very healing for me, because I speak to a lot of my friends, and some are right now online, about, you know, what it's like for life in New York right now, which is where I'm from, and many places in the world. And it's very closed in, and it's very scary, and it's very frustrating. Here, there's a sense of like the power of the land, of those principles, of that Pachamama, you know, that this life force is going to make it, you know, it's going to outlive us all. And that what we need to do is to kind of do our part to try to preserve that and to protect it, and to make it relevant for today. And that's, as a communicator, and you know, and you guys are all, many of you are in the business of tourism, of moving people from point A to point B. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be wanting that experience that I'm fortunate to be having right now because of just life.
So it's in our hands, I guess, to reinvent and reimagine.
Yeah, and a lot of you are doing it already. I'm sure a lot of people working are just around the clock thinking, how are we going to, what's our role to play? And I think that there's a more powerful role to play. It's not going to be as easy because, you know, even speaking to Joaquin Randall, who's got that amazing place, he's got the best site down in Ollantaytambo. You know, it's like you can't go by his door. If you're going to Machu Picchu, you got to pass through his door. But he was thinking already years ahead of time about diversifying. And that's just, and his diversification thinking, you know, about his distillery or the organic farm or his school that he set up or reforestation projects. These are things that are, he just feels like a sense of responsibility, but also a value in diversifying. And I think that's something we all are doing. I mean, that's what I'm doing here in Cusco. I'm basically having to reinvent myself for the time I'm here because that's where life is at right now.
Yeah, and everything is pointing to people traveling for longer periods to a certain area. So that would be ideal, right? Because traveling clearly is going to, it looks like it's going to be more expensive to fly and it's going to be harder. So it's pointing in the direction that people are going to spend longer time, right? In an area. And that would be fantastic for Cusco and the Sacred Valley. Imagine having that sort of tourism and, you know, people that care and want to have like the experience you're having, as you said.
Yeah.
We're very jealous that you're there.
Maybe also, Marisol, and I don't know how this is going to unfold, but maybe that idea of traveling is going to take on a virtual quality too. Like we're going to have to be smart about using technology to share experiences that they're never going to replace that firsthand experience, but they're going to extend it. Like you said, it's not going to just be the 3 or 4 days and you check it off your bucket list. It's like you can build community. That's what I did with World Vasectomy Day. It was based upon principles and it was about building a community. I didn't want to just make a movie and then have people applaud or not applaud or win an award. I wanted to see if could I sustain community over time because I believe we can make a greater impact. So the relationships that we have are going to be more important than ever. They're going to be lasting longer. And I think, like you said, the experiences people come from are going to be coming already, both, I think, with an expectation of something more powerful, but also wanting to contribute too. Absolutely. Giving people a chance to be of service is really powerful. I mean, that is the principles of a lot of the work I've been doing. This idea of like every life matters and every life should be given an opportunity to express its full value. And that's what, you know, those are such powerful principles here in Cusco already. So it's just, all I'm doing is basically creating the context within which that expression can now find its.
From my experience in, you know, for 23 years in doing sort of sustainable tourism, I know that there's lots of people and a lot of them are in the audience that care very much and they want to bring the best out of this wonderful destination. We've got the raw material and the wonderful people who want to bring the best out. Let's see if now with this halt, we can all work together to reinvent Cusco's tourism future. And Jonathan, you're well known to bring always a positive story to the most tough situations. I've seen your films and you've been in incredibly difficult locations and always having a positive story. So we feel very lucky and fortunate to have you. This has been a serendipitous encounter and thank you for your courage and your enthusiasm of staying on and contributing in this wonderful way. So thank you very much. And
you know, it's funny, in the very first days, Marisol, in the first weeks, I was sending back pictures. And I happened to come here and going out into the country when the flowering season was, it was like the flower, I could not stop taking pictures of flowers. I took some, I started sending them back to New York and it was very funny because there were some people who were resentful. You know, they were resentful that I was surrounded by flowers or they were surrounded by fear. But it is very true that if you look at my life and my career, this is a blessing. This is not just a coincidence. This is the result of being sent to war zones and conflict areas and where there's misery, to end up in probably the safest, healthiest, most magnificent place in the world where the messages are the most powerful and resonate the furthest. For this period in time is like, that's all I wake up every day and say, thank you.
So, thank you so much. And also I wanted to thank And I'm so happy that as many in the audience are people who actually made it possible that you are there, because they donated. So, you know, we could have you there. So this is a wonderful circle that virtuous, virtual and virtuous.
Maybe we'll all end up in at the Academy Awards with
exactly.
I can lose again. Maybe I'll lose again.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And now I think we have some pictures where you want to tell a little stories.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say one thing before I start the pictures, because you know, I've been taking a lot of photos. We've been videotaping a lot too. We couldn't show video because of the limitations of Zoom, so it's not that it doesn't exist. And you know, what we're going to do with that, it works in progress, but we have lots of amazing footage from this time. We've had drones. We've really gotten around and filmed, you know, the best you could possibly see these historic sites without a single tourist. You know, to be in the Plaza de Armas without anybody. But I want to start from the very top. This is the beginning. This was the very first images that we were being alerted to. This is what brought me here. You can see this is this is the view from Chinchero, and this is the airport. There's, you know, starting to remove soil, which is what caused pain. So go to the next picture. But this is when I got there. This is what I see. See, I'm up there on the top of the hill. To the left, you can see maybe you can see a gentleman. He's the suegro, the father-in-law. He's out there working the field, and below there is the little city, and then beyond that is the Pampa where the airport's going to go. So for those who think that it's been already destroyed, which is one of the reasons people say, oh, it's too late already. No, that's not destruction. I know destruction. That's not destruction. So the first thing I did was I tried to find young people to become a part of my film group. So you can see the next picture, just a little example. You know, everybody becomes a director, everyone's a cameraman, everyone's a sound producer. It's like, if your heart is beating and you got good mind and spirit, you're like a filmmaker. You're on my team. So we just start building teams of young filmmakers, and not so young. Anybody who wants to join becomes part of it. So go to the next picture. We go to Chinchero, and this is Rocio. Now, I obviously didn't pay such close attention because I didn't realize she was pregnant at this time. That's why she's wearing the wrap around her belly. But she is amazing. Like, as a documentary filmmaker, to meet a character like this, when you meet her, you're like, just shut up and just follow her lead. So she's been amazing. So she has a beautiful family. They go work in the field. She's a campesina, and every day they go up and they're working the chacra like everybody else. And go to the next one. And her job is to actually provide, you want to switch over to the next bit? Yeah. So she brings the meal up every day. So that's what her job. And there's the mother-in-law and with the big hat and the husband, and they're all working. And these are all cousins who come, and there's 8 or 9 people who work. And then today they work on her field or their field. And then the next day they'll work on the next field. That's the sort of principle of Aini, and everybody's working together to try to get these fields planted. Go to the next picture. This is Rocio right at the edge of her land. I'm working with Rai, who's a cameraman, and you can see there's the cut in the land. Her land that's her land, right where it ends there and begins, and she lost a little land, but you know, this is for her very emotional to be able to be, you know, watching the loss of something that her family has had for generations, for which they are so deeply grateful. They always have to reference to Velasco's era in the 75 in the rural, the agrarian reform era that gave them their rights back to their land. Go back to the next picture. And this is what they're planting. I didn't realize that quinoa was about as beautiful as anything that grows, but I'm obsessed by quinoa. But this is what quinoa looks like, and it's most beautiful. It looks like the fall in New England, in the US, and in other parts of the world. Next picture. And these are the father-in-law and the mother-in-law, and this is the first time putting on a mask. They weren't that good at it, but they started. Everybody's learning how. Everybody here in Cusco, I mean, it's been so disciplined here, and I watched in the US how chaotic it is and how disrespectful people are for each other. Here, everybody wears a mask. There's always distancing. Even out in the rural areas, in the most remote areas, people are really conscious of it. So go on to the next picture. And there's the father-in-law, you know, like you see, like that's him looking over the land. That's his traditional tool that he uses for turning it. And, you know, I mean, like I said, I could be stuck in my apartment in New York. So I'm very grateful. Next picture. And, you know, very religious people. There's Cristo Blanco. We're out in the field. And I just bring this up also because of the bus. there are a lot of people who they're coming back from the city to the countryside in their, their transporte, their businesses. A lot of people worked in tourism. Now they're just coming back to the field, and they come back with their transport vehicles, and they're just going to sit there. And the other day I was mentioning, I saw it said tourist, servicio turismo, and I opened it up thinking maybe it was a bus, and it was a mobile vegetable stand. So tourist buses are being turned into vegetable stands.
Take a picture of that next.
Then I headed back to Cusco, and this is what I find. Of course, empty streets. It's just empty. It's just empty. And pretty soon, as many of you know who have been to Cusco, there's nothing quite like the dogs of Cusco. And this is my favorite dog of Cusco. He's sort of just sitting there. Basically, they've taken over the streets and they kind of run the show. So I just like, whoa, amazing. And they kind of like, they look at you like you're sort of a visitor. But, they're amazing dogs. I mean, the most beautiful street dogs in the world are in Cusco. I don't know how that happened, but that's what you see. And then every once in a while, the rain, the sun comes out, and then you end up with these kinds of days where you have these double rainbows and just like these amazing sights and views and just like empty streets, just walking down and experiencing Cusco with not a single person around when there's these sunsets and it's just fantastic. Go on to the next picture. And there's Coricancho, and again, it's like rainbow, amazing beauty. It just makes you feel gratitude. All I can think, joy and gratitude. So, and in the meantime, I've ended up becoming friends with the priest. So you'll see in the next picture, this is Jorge. Jorge is he's the Jesuit priest I mentioned to you, and he every day I started this idea for him that we could live stream mass. Now, as a good New York City Jewish atheist, it's very funny to be. My new best friend is a Jesuit priest, and I've managed to get him to have, and I organize a service, a mass for him every day. And then we're starting this new thing called, a little bit of a ripoff from Vargas Llosa, but we call it Conversaciones en la Compañía instead of en la Catedral. And it's our way of we take his homily and then we extend upon it, and we have conversations about what is the meaning of what is the meaning of all this. So this is fantastic. He's like a brilliant guy, just fantastic, and inspiration for all of us. I'm not converting if my parents or family are listening. Don't worry, but it's, to have this kind of wisdom to share, it's just part of the whole spiritual landscape here. Is just so rich in wisdom and knowledge. In the meantime, I go back to the village when I'm finding out that Rocio's pregnant, and her father-in-law reads the coca leaves to find out what's going to happen with Rocio's. And he says, the good news is you're going to have a daughter. And they right there, they named her Semilla, which means seed, which is beautiful, like that idea of like a rebirth. And then he looks further and he says, unfortunately, she's going to die, which came as and she's translating this to us, and you can see she's almost ready to burst into tears. And we're all sort of in shock to find out that this beautiful child that's not going to be due to be born in June 14th, Nadine, your birthday, by the way. That she's this little beautiful, yet to be existing child is going to die. And so the next thing I do was find the absolute best. Pass over to the next picture. Yep. Yeah, this woman on the left in the red is a brilliant midwife, like obstetrician midwife, who you just have such confidence in her. And we just worked together to make sure she had a midwife to guarantee that the baby would not die in birth, which is what the father-in-law predicted. So we started really a campaign, which we'll talk about at the end, but it was really trying to make this emphasis on making sure that Rocio, who's fighting for all of us to make sure that airport isn't built, and amazing. She's 35 years old, but she's a powerhouse. She's just like that. She could have her child be born healthy and protected. So on to the next picture. Sorry. So we decide to protect the baby and to protect the land. We gotta, of course, we gotta bring a shaman into the picture. So there's the land where it's cut off. You can see where her land ends. And then they're doing a ritual, which we'll switch to the next picture. And the next picture is they're just giving gratitude to the four corners, of the four directions. and to the Apus and to the mountains and around, and sort of, and along the way, this is a beautiful little story. Along the way, the shaman, whose name is Froilan, whose father just passed away a few days ago. We were just with him yesterday, but he finds 3 potatoes, and he said, and he brings them in, and when he finds out that the daughter, the unborn child's name is Semilla, and he has these 3 potatoes, he says to her, plant these potatoes, because these potatoes will, they'll bring rich and wealth to your family and to your daughter, and this will help her survive. And I told the same story to Ruro, the partera, to the midwife, and she said, well, why don't we? Said, well, I think what we should do is plant those seeds along with the placenta in the airport when the baby's born, to sort of like a very powerful symbolic energy that could be generated out of that right now dead land. So that's what I love about this kind of storytelling, because when stories are told collectively, including Marisol, what you did, but the people who supported you to get me here, these stories take on this resonance, and then they're just more powerful because they're real. And when you give people voice, when they're all of a sudden the part of the stories that we're telling, they're not just, characters in a film, but they're real life people who are making difference in the world, things start happening. And it happens because we work in this notion of alyu, of working collectively. So go to the next picture. Then I get a little, got to put in a picture of a little girl, Vanessa, who just looking up at the sky and just kind of like makes me think, that's where we got answers. There's hope there. And I start going all over and starting taking beautiful pictures. And these are some just beautiful pictures. You can go through quickly to just some of the nature around that I've shot. So Alberto, keep it going.
Yeah, Alberto's different.
And there you go. This is right near the I see that little opening there, and the sky. It's just like, yeah, we're very blessed to be on planet Earth. Go to the next place. This is this is near Pisac. Like I said, you go back in time to find a kind of a brilliance and a genius that is so powerful. The knowledge out of Cusco is so much knowledge that it's just like, this is not just history. This is how we work the land in ways that last hundreds and hundreds of years. This is what everybody, I think you guys are all fighting to keep alive. That's what people are coming to see. And whether they get the experience or not, it's there, it's not going anywhere. On to the next picture. And there, of course, it's nice to go to Sacsayhuaman in the afternoon and be the only person there, by the way.
Wow, how lucky you are.
So it was like, the irony of this whole thing, Marisol, is that people come to Peru primarily for Machu Picchu. It's the only place I haven't been able to get to yet. And you know what? If I go back and I didn't see Machu Picchu, it's only going to make me want to come back again. It doesn't make me think like I've seen it all. I just feel like, oh my God, just because I'm not looking at Machu Picchu, there's so many Inca trails everywhere. I've been going on these hikes. You can hike from Cusco to Pisac over in one day. And it's just like, you see, this place is there's so much richness here. And then the final picture, I think, is just my, the stairway up there. That's just Pisac. And you just go, oh my God.
It's a sacred landscape, isn't it?
And there's my final. I caught this picture 2 days ago. It was just like, I was on my way. I didn't get there on time, so that I couldn't make it in for mass. But I went outside and I had my own little spiritual experience, and I get to see a double rainbow over the beautiful area. So, again, like, this is where I'm at, and this is where we're at. I wanted to say one thing, and I wanted to acknowledge you again, Marisol, because you wrote me when you were. Marisol is a very pursuit of excellence. This is a woman who does not take chances, and she really wanted this project, everything about this to go well. And she wrote me a note about, with ideas of what to do. And she said, hey, if you have any project you would like to ask the people to donate to, feel free to ask. And I didn't ask her for that. I would have, but she offered. And so I am going to ask you guys. I'm going to organize a crowdfunding campaign. And I'd love for you guys to be the first ones I'm going to ask for. And it's all going to go to cover the costs of the birth of Rocio. I just feel like, I'm here because of that airport, because of this effort to stop the airport. And a lot of people have put their heart and soul into it, but nobody is more on the front line than she is. And so to be able to protect her child while she's protecting the land is just something that I want to be part of. I'm going to make a little crowdfunding. I think Alberto has everybody's contact information. We will be asking, it's a little bit what's going to go. We're going to break it down into, she needs a heater. She needs that midwife's cost covered. She needs a blankets. I mean, they live in right now, these are tough times. So all of us together can make a huge difference in Semilla's life, in this new child's life. So that was my plea that you gave me the chance to ask. So I'm going to ask everybody to give a little bit. It can go a huge, long way. And that will be part of the story. So, stick with me. The film will come out and we will be there when that placenta is buried in the middle of that airport, and let it be known, that that's not going to end here, that the airport, it just can't go up. We can't just let that happen. So that's where I'm at right now. Again, thank you all. And I know there are probably some questions, but that's
thank you, Jonathan. We've got quite a few questions on the chat. So
yes, I can go ahead and read it. And I want to just I think on behalf of everyone, the story is fantastic, Jonathan. And it's so beautiful to, as humans, being all of us together right now, and just on that quest of protecting life. That's the whole idea. Thank you so much for the story. And I have one question from Boris. Boris is asking, what's the attitude of locals to Westerners who accidentally got stuck during those times in Cusco that they were not allowed to come back? What's the attitude of the locals towards the foreigners?
I can't speak in generalizations. All I can say is I get treated beautifully. Every interaction I have, from the police officer to the local, everybody has been incredibly nice. I don't know what fears or what's going on elsewhere. So all I can say is, up until now, I've not had one single anything that's not been positive. So that's all I can say. Great.
Sarah Taylor is asking us, will travel become more stratified socioeconomically?
I mean, it hasn't. I'm guessing it always has been. I think everything, sadly, for better or for worse, our world is like that. I guess the real question is I think that people who have economic means are always able to have extraordinary experiences, and that's something that's going to continue. I think what we would hope to do is figure out some way so that the poorest person here in Cusco can have some tourist experience, because for them to go to Machu Picchu is like a journey of it's of a greater magnitude than maybe it is for somebody coming from New York City. So I think creating the quality so that the quality, because there's so many places to go from, there's so much knowledge here. And I think that doesn't have to be expensive. And that's part of what this media project that I've been talking with about people here is about. Let's make that knowledge accessible. Let's go out and share the knowledge. And there have been so many people here who have been excited to be part of what we're doing. So for example, we've been doing this mass every afternoon at 4 o'clock. What we're going to start is a morning ceremony, with a shaman, to do a kind of a ofrenda, an offering to the earth, in the same way that we start the day with a kind of an acknowledgement of this beautiful place and of the power of nature. And we end it with this powerful conversations about God and spirituality. And I think in between, there's so many things we can do, yoga classes, healing, agriculture, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of knowledge here we want to share. So I think that should be available for everybody. As far as tourism and the stratification of our economic system, that's a way more complicated conversation, and I can provide answers for it.
Okay, Bert Utenbrock is asking us, did the local authorities explain the logic of a new airport at 45-minute drive from Cusco Airport?
I mean, here's a really interesting thing. I asked one guy, and I literally, and he's a very smart guy. I won't say his name, but a very smart and very dedicated person. And I asked him, how would you feel if there was a better if there was an alternative to Chinchero? If it was either make this airport you have work better, or Okururo, or somewhere else. And he said to me, I would cry. He would cry. Why? Because the thing that upset him more. This is really interesting. I mean, I think this is revealing. The thing that upset him more, the idea of the Chinchero airport was a dream that Cusqueños have of bypassing Lima. And I think you guys know better than I do, but I think for a lot of Cusqueños, in part, Lima represents the Spanish Empire, and Cusco is the Inca Empire, and they don't like to be under, you know, adhere to their, to be reliant upon them. Of course, I sit there and I go, look, it's just science, you know, like there's limits. You cannot fly limitly from altitude. It's just not personal. It's not political. There are political aspects of it, but it's just like, it's going to be limited. But they think in their mind that Chinchero is they can go from Chinchero to like Madrid. And that's what they're starting to realize. That's not possible. They're going to have to go from Chinchero to Lima or to Bogota or to Santiago de Chile. It's going to be exact. It's all they're doing is moving the airport from Cusco to Chinchero. And then the funny part is they literally think that, because they say, you know, the one argument they make is that there shouldn't be an airport in a city. But if you move the airport to Chinchero, it's going to be a city. It's going to be Chinchero. It's going to replace Cusco. And then, of course, instead of going to Cusco, they'll just go down to the Sacred Valley. So they're going to bypass. Forget about all the technical reasons and all the beautiful nature and history that would be destroyed. It doesn't even make economic sense. So and now, of course, the whole thing is up for grabs. And, you know, what comes next, we'll see. Again, there are people who are fighting for this issue who are going to be fighting way past me. And some of them are in Lima, and some of them are in Chinchero, and some of them here in Cusco. And those are really the heroes. I just happen to be here at a time to help provide some of the storytelling around it. But I think that struggle has already been, it's already happening. And I see the people here on the list who are here on this participating who have a lot more to offer on the specifics of what's going to be done to stop that airport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. We have one last question, and is, how do you, Marisol, feel about the story Jonathan will tell in terms of the role that tourism has played in the modern world? Should you not also be part of the film with ideas of what needs to change in our understanding of mobility?
Your voice went there.
Okay. So once again.
Yeah, can you repeat?
How do you, from Claudio Fogu, how do you feel, Marisol, about the story Jonathan will tell in terms of the role that tourism has played in the modern world? Should you not also be part of the film with ideas of what needs to change in our understanding of mobility in the world?
Well, that Jonathan, if you want me as an extra or I'm happy to be on your script. Very happy about. No, I mean, I have a lot of ideas. Certainly, a lot of ideas about how I feel. That's why I fight so hard, and I believe in sustainable tourism. That's the ethos behind the tourism I do. I believe in the sacred landscapes of the Cusco and Sacred Valley area. I believe that we need to protect them with all our energy, and this is what we're doing. Yeah, I think that the tourism has to change, and I'm not the only one. There's many people in the industry that are rally behind this cause, and I hope that with this halt with coronavirus, will be helped by, it's one of the good side effects, right, of this bad disease, of this situation. So I hope I answered. It's up to Jonathan.
Well, let me say, I just want to say one thing. First of all, Marisol, if you get here to Cusco, you're definitely in the film. That's okay. And everybody else, and there are many people who are online now who are up here, and any single person who's here, because I think there's another project to be made about the future of tourism and how it's going to play out. And I think that is something that can be talked about, and I certainly am open, you know, anybody, you know, I've reached out to a lot of people, and like we said, a lot of people have been very cautious until they see if this emergency passes. But as it passes, and if I'm still here, I'm more than happy to come by and have that conversation and to put it online and to start to put stuff together so we can have a much more ample conversation, because, you know, tourism can get a bad rap, but the reality of it is it's like, this is what's going to make us work together as a planet. We have to figure out how to communicate to each other, and that's ultimately what it is. It's like it's what formed me, and I think it's what formed a lot of us who are on today. We didn't just live in our communities. We went out into the world, and we did it because we wanted to enrich ourselves and to be able to offer more to, you know, to our children and to future generations.
Yeah, and that's what travel does, right? It brings you out of your cocoon and makes you see other realities. Now, Jonathan, thank you again for this wonderful story telling. And after this talk, which is recorded, it's going to be up on our site, so you can share it with friends. And we're going to email you with the link to it, as well as with Jonathan contact details, and also the link to the crowdfunding campaign. So then we're all covered.
Thank you all, everybody. Amazing. I gotta say, it's just loneliness is like the hardest thing. So just really thank you again, Marisol, because if nothing else, just to share and to have people listen and talk just means a lot. And, you know, we all should be finding, you know, ways of getting our voices out there and expanding, because we all have stories to tell. And just, I'm very, you know, honored and grateful to be chosen today to share my story.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.